Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, 3 Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading 3 Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I'm very excited to have Dr. Anne Curtis with me today. Anne retired as a medical doctor and a sexual relationship therapist after 25 years, feeling disappointed and burnt out. 4 years later, she discovered the answer she'd been looking for and is now acting on a compelling vision of living in a world where all beings are totally happy and healthy, enjoying love, fun, laughter, and infinite creativity every day, however impossible that might seem. Welcome, Anne. I'm so thrilled that you're with me today. I know we talked about this actually, I think it was this time last year at Viva. We talked about you coming on the show, and we're both going to be talking at Viva this year. So I thought, oh my God, how great to have you on! And before Viva takes off in about 2 or 3 weeks, I think it is now. So
yeah.
Yes, I'm very excited to have you on and hear your journey. I know that you are a medical doctor and a sexual and relationship therapist for many years that you were burnt out of, burnt out after, I should say. So I'd love to hear a bit about your journey, what brought you to the principles and how they impacted you and what you do today with them.
Yeah, okay. I can't believe it's a year already since Viva. It's amazing. So much has happened this strange year.
Yes, exactly.
And actually this year I've learned so much more about what I didn't learn at medical school, and I'm beginning to think it was a complete waste of time, not waste of time in learning about what happens at medical school and how medicine works in that way. It's very interesting, but what I learned was that they didn't take human beings into consideration. It was just like a machine. It was just diagnosis. And I was just reading someone today who said, we didn't learn anything about nutrition in medical school at all because we were so busy learning about all the new drugs, and there were so many of them, and so we were learning about how to treat the symptoms and not what was underlying that and what was going on underneath it. So
that's fascinating. I can't believe that.
Oh yeah, no, and this person who I was reading today saying exactly the same thing about himself, and he trained a long time after me. So it's, as far as I know, it's still going on. And the reason I was reading him today actually was because I've just got interested just recently in the microbiome and how important all of that is in our health and so on. So first of all, I knew that there was a lot that we hadn't been taught about in medical school. As soon as I came out, I was like, is that it? Is that it? And I knew that, for one thing, emotions and relationships and everything about being human had to have an effect on health. And I could see it happening in people around me, that was having a big effect on health. And we just didn't take any of that. We weren't taught anything about that. We were taught psychiatry, which, as Bill Pettit says, is mostly about ill health, not about, well, it is about ill health, not about mental illness, rather than about mental health. And nothing to do with relationships and how relationships work, and how I got into psychosexual medicine was that I was interested in the psychological side of things and wanted to learn more about it. But to do that as a doctor in regular training, I would have had to have done psychiatry, and I didn't like anything about the mental illness model, and so I wasn't interested in getting into that. So after doing various things in hospital medicine and feeling like, no, this isn't really what I want to be doing, and I did some neurosurgery and some pediatrics and anesthetics and intensive care, and you know, there were interesting things about this, but it didn't feel that's what I wanted to do. And so I took some time out, and while I was having this time out, I decided to do a bit of GP training, because that seemed a lighter thing to do, and was sent on family planning training while I was doing my GP training. And this very unlikely lady came to talk to us about psychosexual medicine, which I'd never heard of. It was a relatively new specialty, which they had developed because family planning doctors and general practice doctors, when they were doing intimate examinations, were finding that people were coming in and telling them all about their sexual problems while they were being examined. And doctors had not a clue what to do with that. You know, they were like, really? Hadn't got a clue what to say to people, how to help them, and so on. So they had developed this brief psychotherapy training for doctors. And that was like, I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I want. This is my way in. And everyone else, and it was great for me because nobody else none of the other doctors in the practices that I worked in were interested, and they were like, you can have them, here you go. They were all sending them all to me. And of course, it was the sexual side of it was just a focus for whatever else was going on in their lives, and how they were seeing reality and how they were creating their reality and so on. So, but unfortunately, the training that I had, I still wasn't satisfied with. It was based on conventional psychotherapy, and I couldn't understand why some people got amazingly good results in no time at all. And like, they would come for one session, they would talk through it, and it would become obvious what the difficulty was. And they would either not come back, or they would come back to say, oh, thank you very much, that was great. And then other people would be coming back week after week after week. One girl in particular, I remember, week after week for 2 years. And at the same time, actually, because by this time I was doing psychotherapy training on top of my psychosexual training. And I asked the consultant psychotherapist, well, what else can I do? There must be more to do than this. I don't understand what's going on. And he said, oh, she's just not ready. She's just not ready to. I'm like, I know that's not true, because I had been going, as I finished my psychosexual training and started running a psychosexual clinic in the NHS, my husband left me. And that was just to the point. And I was like, And I still didn't understand what had gone wrong with our relationship. I knew it wasn't right. I mean, it wasn't right for me either, but I didn't understand what had gone wrong or what else I could have done or anything, really. So I've done all this training and I still don't understand. I don't even understand for me, never mind the people who are coming to see me. I had then signed up for to see a psychotherapist myself, doing psychotherapy training. So I go to see a psychotherapist, and I was going every week for 2 years. And I still hadn't got a clue at the end of it. I was still not got a clue. So I thought, no, there's got to be something more than this. So that's when I started looking for other trainings. So I trained in NLP. And actually, having trained in NLP, I got better results with people. You know, some people would get much better results, much more quickly, and it was at least it was more positive. So I wasn't feeling like every time I was listening to all these awful stories that people were telling me. So that helped to some extent, but still, I couldn't work out why it was working sometimes and why it wasn't working other times. And so I would go on and I'd do another training, EFT, tapping, and one training after another, as many as I could find. And each one would have, would help a bit. But and then I had all these techniques, and I was trying to use all of these techniques in my life too. And that was getting exhausting. And by this time, I had moved back to Jersey, where I grew up, and was working partly in general practice and partly doing therapy with people. And I still couldn't, I was still feeling, I still don't know what's going on. So I was a fairly alternative GP, and I was quite well known for being an alternative GP. So I supported people who were going through alternative treatments for cancer, or complementary treatments for cancer, which a lot of doctors were very anti, and it was quite challenging because I could see that there were treatments that had worked for people, for other people, and were frowned on by the medical establishment, and it was not always easy for me to be allowed to do that. And also, I had the main reason people were coming to me was because I had done some psychological sort of training and emotional training, and so I was there to help them with that side of things. So actually, I was quite popular as a GP because there weren't many people who would look at the other side of things and support people in alternative ways of. But I was still not satisfied. I still knew I didn't have the answers. I still knew I didn't have physical answers for what was behind the physical symptoms and what was, and also what was behind him. I knew that there was a lot of emotional stuff going on, but I still didn't have all the answers for that. So eventually I packed in my practices. I retired from my practices basically, because I just felt like a fraud. I was getting burned out. Mm-hmm. And also I felt that there were things that I didn't like doing that I had to do, like give vaccinations and things that I wasn't terribly happy about, because I still wasn't sure whether they were good, whether they weren't good, and so on. And there were things that I wasn't allowed to do, some of the cancer treatments and so on. So, but I was just basically, I don't have the answers, and I feel a fraud for being here in this place and getting paid for doing this.
So how did you find the principles, and how did that change how you viewed health combined with the emotional and the psychological? How did that come about?
Well, the first thing was I'd stopped searching. I mean, I'd stopped searching because I was looking after, while I was caring for my mother. My mother got a very strange sort of skin cancer that I had never heard of before, and had been told that there was no cure for it. And we found an alternative that did work, but that seemed to work for her. In the 6 months that she was using it, her tumors started to go away. In fact, almost completely went away. And she was feeling lots better. And the doctors in the hospital were like, this is not possible, and so on. And then they started to come back. And that was a big moment for me, because first of all, I was aware of all this thought going on in me about, oh, you've got to find another cure for her, and you can't let your parents go through all of this, and this is terrible, and it's, your responsibility. You've done the training in this. You need to find something for them. And plus, on top of that, I had felt responsible for my parents, like for the previous 50 years of my life. So it was like, you've got to do something about this. And then on top of that, there was all this thinking from all the trainings that I'd done, all the positive thinking, and you mustn't think negative now. You mustn't think negative about this, or you'll be making things even worse for her, and so on and so on. And then, despite all of that crazy thinking going on, I heard this little voice behind all of that said, okay, what you need to do is you need to go and get in your little camper van, which is parked outside, drive up to the north coast of Jersey, which is about 10, 15 minutes drive, find a lovely peaceful spot looking out over the cliffs and over the sea, and take it all in, get peaceful, and ask for guidance. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's what I did, right? Went and did that, sat there and asked for guidance. And within no time at all, had a very strange experience where I was told, I didn't hear voices, but I knew I was told to repeat 3 phrases, which were really simple phrases. And I just sat there and repeated these 3 phrases. And in no time at all, I was completely calm. I knew that I wasn't responsible for my parents. All of a sudden, I knew I wasn't responsible, and that the bigger energy behind all of life, whatever you want to call it, and in 3 principles terms, mind, was in charge. Now, I didn't know 3 principles. I hadn't heard of the 3 principles at this stage, but it was telling me, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to try and change. The phrases were telling me, you don't have to try and change your feelings. You don't have to try and change your thoughts. Just allow everything to be the way it is, and trust in something bigger than you is okay. So I did that, and that completely changed my relationship with my parents and my relationship with what was going on, and it was just made everything so much easier. It just meant that I could be there for my parents, and then I spent the next few months helping my mother, and then as she got nursing her through the last months of her life. And just before she died, I called my sister back from France, and when she arrived, I had just had my birthday, so she brought with her a birthday present for me, which was a book, and it was Somebody Should Have Told Us. And that was my first introduction to the 3 principles. And when I first read it, I thought, and I read it just straight away. Yeah. I read it and I thought, I can't quite see how this is different from all the other stuff about thought that I've read before. But what I noticed was it felt different. I just felt completely different reading it. So I read it again, which is not usual for me. I don't usually read books twice. So I read it again, and then it suddenly started to make sense to me, and I realized that up until that point, I had always believed and even taught my clients that uncomfortable feelings were important, that they meant that something bad was happening, that something was going on in life that shouldn't be happening, and I needed to do something about it. It meant that something wasn't right and I needed to do something. Yeah. And what I was reading in the book, or what I was understanding from the book, was that's not what they mean at all. They don't mean that at all. They do have a meaning, but they just meaning that you're pointing in the wrong direction. They meaning to me that when I'm having uncomfortable feelings, that is telling me, like Bill Pettit says, it's a love note. It's telling me that I'm forgetting who and what I really am, that I am mind, that is who I am, and that so when I'm feeling uncomfortable, that's telling me that I'm believing that I am the human body and that's all I am, when in fact I'm far more than that, and that we all are. So that's what I mean by pointing in the wrong direction. It's imagining that I'm something that I'm not, imagining that I'm the limited human body, mind. And so, yeah, I think I got very confused the first year after learning about the principles. I started trying to work out which was this principle and which was that principle and what was the other principle and what did they all mean separately. And of course they don't. They're not separate things at all. And I think a lot of people, because it's called the three principles, a lot of people when they first get into it, I've noticed, try and do that. And once I got past that and realized it's all just about who I really am. And that makes, now that I see that the human body, mind, psychology side of it, all of that is going on inside of me, the big me, inside who we really are. It makes a huge difference to how I see medicine and psychology and emotions and so on. So it's
a holistic approach to how as spiritual beings we are functioning in this body that we're on, this world of form and this world of form.
Yeah.
So how does this, I know that, so you don't do medicine anymore, but I know that you're starting, because we actually, believe it or not, do not have much time left. And I want you to talk a little bit about this. You're doing a free online program called Being the Change. So I'd love just, we have about 5 minutes or so left. So I'd really like you to, talk about that and what what you're doing, because your website is fabulous. I mean, you offer so many incredible things. So I'd love whoever's listening to learn a bit about these new programs you're coming out with.
Yeah, I've been Being the Change is about everyone, especially at the moment with so much going on in the world and with not understanding so much about this experience. So we are here to have a human experience, and there's nothing wrong with that, and it's great to enjoy this experience and to make the most of it. And so lots of people are talking about, what's my purpose in life, and I don't feel like so Being the Change is about understanding, first of all, who and what we really are, because that's the basis of all of it, and then about enjoying the human experience and making the most of it, and making the most of not what we think we should do or what we think we ought to do, which is what I spent a lot of my life doing, but finding out how to be in touch with our infinite creativity and what are the things we love to do individually, what are the things we love to do and have gifts to do. So because we're all different, that's the whole point of having a human experience, is we're all being given different and to use. So why not use them? So the Being the Change is finding your way of enjoying life and doing something creative and doing something important and meaningful in life too. And it's a free program.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, because what I'm hearing is, because so many of us get caught up in that thinking of what's my purpose, and we're looking out there to find a purpose. Like no, just be, just tap into being, and whatever shows up is your purpose. We don't have to have these grand lofty ideas that when I get there I'll be happy and satisfied. And I love what you're saying too, because I think it's so important, especially in spiritual communities, to not do that spiritual bypass of trying to dehumanize ourselves. I mean, I love the quirkiness of being human. I love that we all get to express ourselves in these unique little ways that humans do, knowing that we're all one underneath it all, knowing that we're all spiritual beings, but to really immerse ourselves into our human experience. Like you say, we are so blessed to sort of come here and have this experience, have fun with it, for goodness sake. So I love what you're doing. It sounds very exciting. And I love that you're offering it for free for people. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
Really.
yeah. And it's open for anyone.
Yeah. And especially right now as well, I think, the world is different than it was a year ago when we were all in Spain together. This year we're doing it virtually. So what words, would you share with people that are struggling right now? Because I noticed you've got some other programs about people that are going through suicidal thoughts and things like that. So for people that are struggling emotionally, I'd love you to just speak to that for a bit right now.
It's about experiencing. Well, in the program that we're putting together, that I'm putting together with Judy, that's has experienced suicidal thoughts and feelings, and she's really passionate about helping other people to see what she saw. It's again going back to experiencing. Once you know, and once you it's not even knowing, it's experiencing the true self, the bigger picture, then it brings it into perspective. And there's nothing wrong with any of the feelings. And we're not trying to get rid of feelings. We're not trying to. It's more about not being afraid of the feelings. Even Judy says she still gets suicidal feelings from time to time, and I've had suicidal feelings also. And it's just learning, or just experiencing that you don't have to be afraid of them. They're not in control. The feelings are not, they're just a feeling. They're just an experience. And all experiences are experiences. There's no good or bad. There isn't a good or a bad. It's judgments on them that make them uncomfortable. And if we don't judge them, if we just allow the experience and allow the feelings, then it makes a huge difference to what happens and to how we experience life in general.
Yeah, I love that Sydney quote. If we only were not afraid of our experience, that alone would change the world. Something along those lines. Yeah, but it is so true. It's the gentleness with which we hold ourselves as we're having those thoughts that just flow through as that energy, and as you say, without the added, they're good, they're bad, they're scary, they're whatever, they're just energy moving through us. And it's like sometimes we're in a lower mood and we might have more of those thoughts, and but they do move, they move on without interfering from us and meddling with them. I love that we can just allow that to move through us. So Viva, just very quickly, I want to know what are your talks at Viva going to be about?
They're about the first breakout I'm doing with Philippe.
Yeah.
When we is about recognizing our true self through relationships. So how relationships have a way of showing us, again, pointing us and giving us a chance to experience who and what we truly are, and how recognizing that makes a difference to relationships. So
how we show up in them. So and because you're speaking at a couple of different ones, and what are the other ones?
I'm doing another talk with Joe Bailey, another breakout session with Joe Bailey, which is a little more, well, that would be a surprise to come along to. I'm not even sure what we're talking about yet myself.
That's lovely. I love Viva. It's so much fun. There's always lots of surprises in there.
they give you interesting titles and
Exactly.
like, oh, okay. and then I'm doing Sheila and I are doing the Wandering Game, which is a game that we've done online a couple of times, which allows people to explore their own intuition, their own, what we were talking about a moment ago, and learning. Not going with thought is the way to find the answers, but wondering and then seeing what comes.
Wonderful. Just tapping it.
It's real good fun. Yeah,
letting intuition guide you. I love that. That sounds so much fun too. So I know that you've got a new website coming out. For people that are listening to this on the podcast as opposed to watching it on YouTube, can you just give me say your website, how people can contact you?
Well, the easiest way to find me at the moment is at drannecurtis.com. Okay. And then the new website will be linked from there in any case, or it will forward to there. So it's not up yet, but it's going to be called thelovespace.love.
Beautiful, lovely. And as I said, you cover everything from how to deal with relationships and suicidal ideology and the pandemic and health and well-being. And so you really do a wonderful cross-section of everything. So I highly recommend people go and seek you out. And also anybody that's watching this, come and visit us in Viva. It's going to be in a couple of weeks. Yeah, so thank you, Anne. Thank you so much. And I'll see you at Viva.
Thank you. And there are still some tickets left. Join us now.
Exactly. Okay. See you soon. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Lovely to see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you're interested in learning more about my coaching and mentoring packages, please reach out to me at Adey-Jones@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you.